what do you think is holding VR back the most? Is it the cost of entry? Perhaps the quality of our experiences? Perhaps the sheer lack of volume of experiences to experience?
I'm partial to the quality one, personally, but yeah.
I think we could run around in circles and point out good reasons for all of these being a factor, but I think the one that no one talks enough about because it's kind of just ridiculously hard to solve is VR motion sickness. Now, I know some of you are probably some of the elite few who don't have a lick of motion sickness, but I unfortunately can't stand amongst you. You see, when I first started learning about VR, I'd always wanted to try it, and with the Quest 2 coming down in price, I thought, wow, this is a good time to give it a go. I put on my VR headset, got to playing, and within seconds, I felt like garbage. Really bad vertigo, and honestly, I probably should have seen this coming. If there's anyone out there vicariously living through my videos to experience VR, and you've never tried it, let me ask you, what happens when you look at your phone in a moving vehicle? Any effect? If so, buddy, you're probably like me. And it's funny, because every VR enthusiast talks about this to death. Their advice largely being, just keep playing and it'll eventually go away. You'll break your brain back into place. So, I've been doing this for a year. Have I broken my brain back into place? No, not really. Yes, though. Let me explain. My symptoms when I first started was really bad vertigo, feeling kind of dizzy and sick, and then having just a slew of cold sweats soak my body through. But because I have a decent pain tolerance, I just push right on through. But the problem happened when I took off the headset for an hour or so after the fact, feeling really cloudy in the mind and still feeling overall unwell. But this is the crazy thing, and I think it's apparent to all of us who are still here. VR was so fucking good that I didn't care. Being able to see a mountainscape like you could not believe, or react in real time to an enemy throwing a weapon right at your face, or the simple idea of your body being the limitation of your actual speed and not how fast you can hit a button, so on and so forth. All of these things made it so worth it. But it still doesn't take away the fact that to this day, myself and many of others still feel a decent amount of motion sickness when playing. You kind of just get better at numbing yourself to the pain. I know it sounds kind of masochistic in a way, but it's definitely kind of how I feel at this point. A side thing, I want to talk about this. No one talks about how VR is exhausting, okay? This is a small tangent in this video about cool VR movement tech. I've been working out ever since I was 18, full clip, okay? I like to think I'm pretty healthy, but oh my god, man. I think it's standing still that kills you, which is why a lot of these things might have their facilitation. But man, if you have never tried like seated VR, brother, what a nice get. Your back still feels like it's probably kind of burning if you're actually doing any sort of movement thing. But yeah, this is also why the Valve Deckard like big screen, cool curved monitor thing is kind of like, okay, well, when I'm, eviscerated physically, like physically have nothing left, I can then go and just get a cool big screen, and I still get to use this thing I spent a couple $100, that fucking $1,000 in. Jesus Christ. Anyways, back to the video. No one talks about how fucking brutal physically this is on your body. Anyways, the good news is that the VR motion sickness problem is known by many and is trying to be solved by even more. If you've existed even a little bit in the VR space, especially here on YouTube, I'm sure you've seen Cat VR, the Omni One, and now the new and improved VR treadmill shoes, which seems really cool, and also weird things like whatever this is, which honestly this one actually seemed like the coolest to me, but you're gonna be labeled a freak. just from it, but still.
I will concede that we kind of look dumb regardless, but anyways.
All of these things seem extremely interesting, and if anyone's been able to experience any of them firsthand, let me know how they functioned down below. But to me, every single time I see any of these, I think, wow, so brilliant, and wow, pretty decent price tag, and wow, I really wish these had mixes of everything. A hybrid like we were talking about. It's funny, we're just kind of getting there now with VR headsets, finally starting to have kind of a conglomerate of something that we all want, and we're finally getting back on track when it comes to that. The price tag is kind of holding some of us back, but I digress. Let's take the Cat VR slide mill kind of setup. If you guys have never seen this, it's really simple. You essentially have a curved bottom and you wear shoes that you can slide on. It doesn't perfectly emulate walking, it's more of like sliding in a weird way, or I've heard it's akin to actual like skating of a kind. But for a lot of people, they have said, wow, this actually made a dent in my motion sickness. They also said that, oh my god, am I sweating so much? I've lost like 40 pounds, which is a value and also a negative to some. And to me, honestly, this is really enticing. The only thing I find I can't really get behind is the belt strap that seems to hang right on your stomach. And if you actually practice any sort of like healthier breathing, you breathe from your diaphragm. And I feel like that would be really hard on your stomach constantly, where it's tugging at your stomach in a weird way. Now, if we contrast that with the Omni One, which is very similar, kind of still a slide mill type of thing, but instead of having two giant poles that are anchored going directly up, it has one kind of curved pole that attaches right at the center of your back in kind of a backpack configuration. And also you can clip it at the waist like a belt. And to me, that sounds much, much more comfortable. But funny thing is, I always thought, well, why not just give us like a vest essentially that you can put on and use? But then I forgot there's certain ladies who are born very well endowed. So that wouldn't exactly work for them. Also, it'd probably get all hot and muggy in there. And anyway, and it's funny, the more you put yourself in these same situations of why wouldn't they do this? And then you think through the process, you will see these kind of red herrings pop up and make sense of why they went with what, i.e. the Omni One going with like a backpack strap design for your arms or shoulders and waist rather than your whole entire chest and body. It makes sense for its wider appeal. Oh, and I kind of ran by it, but the Omni One's curved pole kind of being away from your feet, to me, I feel like that would be much better if you actually ever got into a pseudo sprint because your legs kind of kick behind you a little bit, you know? But if we take away the arm that holds you up as well as the backpack-like design, I actually kind of really do prefer the Cat. The reason why is because of its secondary feature, which is a simple fabric chair-like thing that will swivel out, and now you can sit down, but you can also still tap in to the swiveling nature of the chair. It might be a little heavy still to like spin around, but because it's anchored at the back, I have a feeling whenever you reach forward, you wouldn't be like smoking your hand into a wall necessarily if you were sitting down, because you already have a real estate of like a meter in front of you that is the platform below you, right? So to me, I was really hoping that eventually we'll see either Cat or Omni One make this kind of hybrid, taking the best of both worlds and slamming it together. But then something else happened that I thought was really interesting. Again, the idea of when you walk, or I guess slide, causing less motion sickness to happen in your brain is fantastic, but I also fear it brings another problem to the forefront, which is kind of like I was ranting about a minute ago, which is how tiring VR can be. This is one of the reasons why I also think that Steam is invested in flat screen gaming wherever you are, with a beautiful curved monitor that looks gorgeous, then always having to flail your arms around and move and dodge and duck just to be able to survive and thrive and play in these games, which is why I really value seated VR gameplay as well. And honestly, this was the dark horse in this journey for me. Out of all the things that to me have really caught my interest and I so desperately want to just try or even talk to someone who has tried, it's this. I know it just looks like a teched out swivel chair, but to me, as a person who's thought through this a lot, this seems like a really good answer so long as it is accurate. And honestly plays into one of the things that I find I struggle most with in VR, which is this feeling of kind of displacement, especially when I turn around. Like when I get motion sickness, my body has gotten better about adapting to movement because it's just a crazy constant in VR. Like you cannot get around the fact that you're moving around. And that you can build up a tolerance for because of the sheer volume of it. I think you can just trick your brain into saying, okay, we'll stop detonating with this. Not everyone, but I think most people can do at least that. But the thing that gets me is when I have to turn my head with my joystick. That's the thing that I've always felt like detonates it immediately and fast. Because that's directly tied with your head's movement, your brain, your center of gravity, everything. So I find like that's such a much bigger problem. And all this really is just a chair that has a motorized swivel to it that is pathed to this little like oscillation remote essentially that will track wherever you're looking at the top of your VR headset. Really easy to install. You clip this thing on the top of your VR headset and then you sit down and then you just go. But I still feel like this is imperfect. But why, you might be asking? Well, if anyone's ever played seated VR, you know that you eventually drop a gun and have to reach for something. And there's games like Bone Lab that let you actually like lower yourself with the joystick move, but it's still not as fast or responsive or even satisfying to do as just leaning down and grabbing something really quickly or squatting down and grabbing something really quickly. So this is where I might lose a lot of you. Okay. This, to me, this crazy Frankensteinian, reminded me of Da Vinci and Assassin's Creed, the kind of weird things he used to make. Or probably just Da Vinci, honestly. I think it's Da Vinci. This absolutely beautiful freak show thing was, to me, the closest thing that I ever wanted to VR. The reason why is because I know the limitations of movement. VR is exhausting, so to have something that where you can like take pressure off of your legs or support your body in some way, doing all of these high percussive actions that are begging to throw at your back, to me was always the silver lining. Yes, walking is really neat and useful, sure, and something that maybe we should even strive towards. But man, to me, this was it. So if I could ramble about you for 2 seconds, this is my dream, that one of these really brilliant innovators and designers out there maybe, just maybe, could possibly make one day. And I think the closest to my dream is this one, because all I want is for it to not be seated, but standing, and for it to keep my feet just a little bit above the ground. But if I wanted to stand, I could. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is my dream product in my mind. Maybe it wouldn't work out, but let me know if you think you'd be interested in it too. To me, I so desperately wish there was a product or a thing that actually, like, it sounds weird, but grabs you at the hips. Essentially, like, kind of like a harness. If anyone's ever done any sort of construction thing and has had to wear a harness, you basically have like straps around your thighs and your waist, like a belt, that quote unquote supports you. And if anyone's ever been fully supported, you can literally sprint around, swing around, everything. I just don't think you need to be hanging from the ceiling to do that. I think if there was an Omni One arm, for instance, that came back and anchored right at your hips, and all you had to do was snap on this belt and snap onto other belts around your thighs, a little seat that popped out that kind of gave you a little more support if you wanted to sit completely down. And if you wanted, you could put it on the highest setting and your feet would barely just lift off the ground. It's supporting your weight, and all you would have to do is turn your head, just like the chair motor, and it would point you in the right direction you are. You could still lean down and grab stuff, but you are fully supported with your legs. And if they wanted to go even more above and beyond, it could also still leverage the backpack-like straps to help you support your back, essentially. Now, I know some of you guys are probably thinking, but wait, isn't walking the thing that determines you not getting motion sick? Yes, and this is where I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that you might not need to replicate perfect movement in order for you to trick your brain into submission. Again, if you think about grabbing something in VR, you're hitting a button, you're not actually grabbing something. So I don't think you actually need to slide your feet back and forth full clip to actually get that flag to not detonate within your brain that detonates motion sickness. The idea of a pivoting axle wherever you look, on top of being able to sit down and take pressure off of your legs and spine. And also, hell, kept the slide mill things in there, where all you'd have to do is drag your feet the same way that you would do it if you were sitting in an office chair trying to get someplace while still sitting in it. You'd use your feet to kind of pull you there. I think your brain would still be able to correlate that with that. I also don't think people get sick by doing that. If you were sitting down in a chair and you had to like reach forward with your toe and pull yourself forward, I don't think that detonates motion sickness within you, no? So why would it do that in VR if that's how you move? And also, I think you could do that relatively fast. Now, if you're sitting down, it kind of looks a little freaky and you're kicking your legs like a weirdo. But if you were standing almost upright on like a bicycle seat where your feet were still able to make contact, I feel like that would be a lot easier to slide. I hope so badly this makes sense and you guys can kind of envision it. If we literally just took a base plate and a pole going all the way up and then had a bike seat in the middle and maybe a supportive arm for your back or waist, making it so you could kind of sit while standing up in a weird way, and wherever you look would activate a motor in the base plate actually pivoting you. That's kind of what I mean. The only thing that this is kind of weak in is that you would struggle to crouch. But to me, that's a smaller price to pay. And I still think there'd be something that you could do with that, especially with the Omni One's kind of weird arm that connects at the very, very back, you know? Kind of like a tensioning spring that kind of pulls you slightly up, but you can still squat if you really squat, but it would still take pressure off of you having to stand for 4 hours at a time or however long you might play a game. Regardless of if my Frankensteinian idea or hybrid will ever exist, I have no idea. But if you're one of the many developers out there trying to solve this problem, thank you. I still suffer from some pretty severe motion sickness, and I've just learned to deal with it at this point, and I so dearly hope one of you are able to crack the code. My name is GRINN. I hope I can see and talk to you once again. Enjoy the rest of your day. Love you, and